Sure.
Donald.
So,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay, yeah, I was curious, we've heard quite a bit about how the Wildrose does support LGBTQ students, but I'm curious if you have any specific concrete measures, specifically in terms of GSAs and Bill 44 that you plan to put into legislature.
We certainly do support the community, the LGBTQ community. We support any measures that will help to reduce any kind of bullying or intolerance within the schools. We're very supportive of equality. Our leader is very supportive of the community. Many of us have been involved in the community. Just the other week I was marching, our leader was marching in different festivals and events. This is very, very important, and we are strongly supportive of any measures to increase tolerance. And we do want to work very closely with the school boards to make sure that any strategies are delivered in the best possible way, but very supportive of the community.
Thanks, Ken. Thank you. And Michelle has a question or a challenge. 30 seconds to say it, and then 30-second response.
My challenge is actually also to the Wildrose. This issue came up actually in the legislature already. GSAs was a topic, and it was brought up as a bill. It was not supported by the education critic from the Wildrose, Bruce McAllister. It was not supported by the Wildrose MLA, Rob Anderson, who was a former education critic. Both of those Wildrose members did not support allowing any time a student wanted to create a GSA in a high school to be able to do that. So I would just like to challenge that.
Thanks, Michelle. Yeah.
Yes, we are very much supportive of the LGBTQ community, as I mentioned before, and any measures that deliver strategies against any kind of bullying or intolerance. One thing about the Wildrose Party that is interesting and unique is that we all have a free vote. If 17 MLAs from the Wildrose decide to go for one direction, if the community is telling me as an MLA for the Wildrose Party that we believe a certain way, I have that free vote. So we don't all block vote in a certain way. We each have our own individual free voice based on our constituency. Personally, I'm very supportive of GSAs, and I'm very supportive of the LGBT community.
Great. I was sleeping at the wheel. There's so many things in front of me. Excellent. So now we're going to move on to another issue. I think that affects a lot of parents and a lot of families, certainly in this riding and across Calgary and across the province. Alberta currently has a severe shortage of quality, accessible, and affordable childcare spaces at a time where we are experiencing a shortage of qualified employees. What would your party's position be for addressing the crisis for young families? So I think we're back to you, Michelle.
The Alberta Party would definitely support more publicly funded daycare facilities. I also would support entrepreneurial efforts within the daycare facilities, because that gives options to parents. And I do believe that that gives a lot of opportunities for people to run their own businesses. I think the economy is sustained by having good workers available, and also to have good workers available, we need to have good childcare. And that childcare also then turns into good education opportunities for our children. I think we need to invest in our future, and we need to take care of our young people. Thank you.
Well, certainly, agreeing with you, actually, we do need to look at ways to take care of our kids, and making sure that we have the best caregivers possible for our children. And that certainly is something that the Wildrose Party and the MLAs certainly care about. So anything that we can do to support our children and making sure that we provide opportunities for people to take care of them, we certainly support that. So we respect local decision-making, of course, and working with city regulations and such, but certainly we support anything that would help to provide greater care for our kids.
Thank you.
I'll just tell you a couple of stories, because it's a nice way to answer a question. In Brentwood, in the community right near where I live, there is an elementary school. There is a neighbor who was looking after children of fellow neighbors while the older children were going to school. Became so popular that she needed to then get a license to have a certain number of children in her home. So one thing that the government can do is to facilitate getting licenses to care for children in your home and to provide the education around that and proper health care and things like that. And then it got so popular that she actually applied for licensing to run the before and after school program and on PD days in the school. So we have a lot of buildings in our communities. We have community centers, we have schools, all kinds of places where these kinds of childcare and daycare places can happen. So how can we, as a government, help promote facilities? How do we facilitate that in our communities? Another thing, and just coming back to what's going on worldwide with early childhood care, there's a thing called the Forest Schools, and there are lots of communities that are having early childhood education primarily out of doors in parks. And you know, you can think of a typical preschool program, which is only a couple of hours long. This is not too long to be outside for properly dressed children, and it is healthy for them, and they connect with their place and with their environment, and they come out with a much greater education by doing all kinds of things and negotiating the world together in situ.
Okay, yeah, I don't have any good childcare stories, but I do have quite a few friends who have children, so I've seen firsthand how childcare can definitely be a struggle for a lot of people. A lot of people really struggle to find childcare spaces nearby, but then if they do find them even, the prices are just so prohibitive. And then often parents, especially women, tend to drop out of the workforce because of that. So right now, Alberta spends less per capita on childcare than any other province. Families are struggling to afford childcare, while childcare corporations are actually getting public grants to subsidize their operations, which does not sound right to me. The problem with this approach is market-based childcare results in an access and a quality crisis, and this crisis often hits women the hardest. The NDP has a very specific solution for this. Some of you might have seen our federal leader, Thomas Mulcair, I think it was yesterday, rolled out a very comprehensive, a very forward-thinking childcare policy. This issue is clearly high priority for the party across the country. We have a very specific plan. As your MLA, I would introduce a childcare system that moves towards a maximum daily cost of about $25 per child, and we would put a $9 cap on after-school care. That's per day, sorry. I believe childcare is critical as a human service, but it's also actually really good for our economy in the long term. Parents who have affordable childcare, they join the workforce, they'll contribute through taxes, and then they'll boost the economy. And there's actually been studies shown that they'll boost the economy by almost twice as much as what we originally invested in childcare in the first place. So I feel that childcare must be treated like an investment in our future.
For us, it begins with education. We need to build sustainable, adequate, and predictable investments in our future of education. We need to build schools as community hubs that serve as child care centers and as community gardens, so everyone in the community can come together and enjoy each other. First, the Liberals would also introduce daycare programs in the workforce and cheap child care. Thank you.
So I'm going to be really fancy Nancy up here, and I'm going to try to put two questions together. So work with me. It's around the environment. So there's kind of two parts to it. First off, Alberta has committed to meeting greenhouse gas emissions by 2020. Would your party commit to achieving those goals? And what would your party's strategies be to make that happen? Another piece of that is there are many harmful impacts from development of the oil sands. Harm to Aboriginal communities, harm to the air, the water, the soil, climate, and all forms of wild animals and plants. Given these many harms, does your party support imposing a limit on the rate of production of the oil sands? And so I think we're going to start, who am I starting with? I think it's Kathy. Yeah, you're next. Thanks,
Okay.
Kathy. Yeah.
Thanks very much. The Wild Rose Party is very committed to clean air, water, and land. We want to protect the environment. We are committed to lowering greenhouse gas emissions and CO2 emissions. Although we're doing a good job here in Alberta, we certainly could improve, and we do have some strategies. Those strategies are based on moving from coal to natural gas, and so we can get rid of our coal-fired electricity generation and replace it with natural gas. We're also committed to improving mass transit, and that's our LRT system, so we can have less reliance on vehicles, and offering incentives to consumers using renewable energy. We're also committed to working with industry. I think this is to the point of the oil sands, to phase out our oil sands tailings ponds. We certainly are committed to protecting our land, our air, and our water currently and for future generations. That is critically important, and Wild Rose Party is very committed to doing that. Thank you.
The answers are yes and yes. I can elaborate a little bit. Does your party support the reduction of greenhouse gases? Well, this is a no-brainer, of course. And can we do it soon? Why not? Is the other part of that question. One of the things, Alberta is riddled with existing pipelines, moving oil products all over, and natural gas, all over the province all the time. Are all of these up to date? Do they need repair? Yes, is the answer. While we are still extracting resources of these kinds, it needs to be safer and cleaner and attended to our housekeeping right now. We have to tighten up the pipelines, we have to tighten up those wellheads, all of that stuff. Without, what's the rush on building new pipelines? If we have enough, moving a lot, while we are ramping down oil extraction, we can be ramping up other industries with the non-renewables. We move away from coal, which is polluting our air and water. All kinds of countries are successfully doing this, and we can too. I think that pretty much addresses those two questions.
Thank you, Kelly.
Yeah.
So this is a cause that's near and dear to my heart. I've done some volunteering in this area with a great organization called Open Streets Calgary, and also as sort of younger person, I think I can still fit in that bracket. The issue of sustainability is really important to me. I think my generation feels like we're going to inherit a lot of the challenges that are coming across with the choices being made right now. And I'm proud, I want to say, of Calgary's clean air and clean water. I think we have a great place to live. But I have seen this city